I'm 64 years old, and I got sober when I was 22 years old. So I grew up in a not so loving home. I was a convicted felon at 19. My husband was a drug dealer, and that mess that goes with that is penitentiaries and death. Ended up looking at 10 years, but we had money, we were white, we made deals, and was a convicted felon. Through that process, death's next, right? So I never thought I'd live past 25. At 22, it's like, I'm not gonna live very long. Is this what I want?
All right, welcome to another edition with Living Boldly with Purpose. And it's not every day that you get to talk to folks that kind of have some of the kindred spirit that you have, kind of do some of the things that you've done and are working to help people. And when I think of living boldly with purpose, I don't think you can be in purpose if you're not serving others. And I know you guys are doing that in spades. And so today I have Dean and Holly Kim on today, and we are going to chop it up just in a way that is going not only to bless you, but to hopefully change your world a little bit and make it a little bit different. I was just talking to them before the show and, asked them what they're excited about. And literally what they're excited about is how they get to help people, how they get to make a difference in people's lives. And, they've been married for over 30 years now. And you can tell they still love each other. They want to come on the show together. They want to do things together. When I say that, my wife and I both work from home, and she's got an embroidery business down in the basement, and I do all my other stuff upstairs. And we got a grandchild who shows up just every day. We have 8 children and 16 grandkids. And so we've got all kind of kids in and out and all over the place. But 2 of our kids are adopted. And I know you guys had adopted your son. Our boys are twins, and they were adopted. We got them from New York. They were crack babies back when they were when they were little. They are going to turn, today is the 5th. So in 3 days, they'll turn 30. And so that is just, so exciting to see them blossom and grow. And they actually, this in the last few years, found their biological parents and wanted to go and do that and have started relationships with them, which is totally, that's what, that's what the world's about. We actually even got one of them that 23andMe kit so that they could find their parents. And what happened when we got them when they were a little bit older, they were 4 when we were able to adopt them. And I remember there was their brother that was in the adoption service room with them when we went to New York to that's kind of a funny story too. We went to New York to see if they would be a fit for our family. And then the adoption agency said, "Can you take them home with you now?" And so we did. So after 24 hours of hanging out with them, they had plane tickets ready. I don't know if they just knew it was going to happen. You think about a blessing. But their brother was in the agency with them, and he was getting adopted by another family. And we asked that other family, could we, younger brother, could we, keep in contact, and could, they grow up knowing each other? And that family said, no, we didn't want them to. And so when we did the 23andMe thing, their brother popped up on it. And the brother said I think he was like 2 or 2 years younger than them. And at the time he said, they didn't even tell me I was adopted till last year. So, but now they have a great relationship, and we visit him. And so he gets to be kind of part of our family as well. And so, but that's enough about my story. I'm already talking about me, and I should be talking about you guys. So please, as I do with all of our guests, I want you to tell your story, tell why you're so excited about life, why you're doing the things that you're doing. And then we'll talk a little bit after that. And so I don't know which one of you wants to go first. I guess you just kind of go back and forth there, but
ladies first.
Tell your story. The floor is yours. No, shut up.
Well, I'm 64 years old, and I got sober when I was 22 years old. Okay. So I've been sober for 42 years. Yeah. So I grew up in a not so loving home, dysfunctional. Okay. We're all dysfunctional on some level, but it was a dysfunctional divorce system. And my mother was, not so stable. Let's go there. And through her suffering, there was much suffering. So through that, I didn't learn how to love myself. That would be the bottom line. And so through the self-destruction of my life, and by the time I was 22, I just had to make a decision. What am I going to do? Am I going to stay on this earth or not? So I decided to get sober and been working on myself ever since. and I don't want to quit. You know what I'm saying? I want to continue to do that. So through learning how to love myself, I ended up getting a divorce from my first husband because he did not want to, stay sober. Okay. And I was a convicted felon at 19. Through the consequences of my life, I ended up becoming a board certified substance abuse counselor. And I would have never thought about doing anything like that prior to this. So, becoming a counselor, and I was certified for over 17 years, went to ministry school, got ordained, and now I'm a Christian counselor. Plus, I've been a life coach since our son for 23 years. So you mix all of that up together, and that's the credentials. But whatever. In that meeting Dean, I met Dean when I was 28 years old, right before I turned 28 years old, and we were good friends. And he was in the seminary, going to be a Catholic priest. So he was very safe, was not looking to get married again, but was, he was somebody that loved God, and I loved God. I was in the 12 steps, and, I wanted to talk about God a lot and learn more. So through that process, I grew up Catholic. Through that process, we became really good friends. And I'll let him tell you that from there. Huh? You want to go there?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so we met when I was leaving the seminary. I went back. When I was 16 years old, I had a pretty radical encounter with the Lord at a Catholic high school retreat. And from then, I really felt that I wanted to serve him. But I was also an athlete and played baseball. And when I went to college, was debating on whether to go to the seminary or play college baseball. And I ended up playing at Auburn back in the 80s, and then eventually transferred into the seminary.
And he did play with Bo Jackson.
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Well, let's go there.
All the young folks are going, Bo who?
Bo who? Bo the best. Yes. Bo knows.
So I eventually left baseball, went into the seminary. And at the time, there was a lot of stuff going on in my home. My parents' marriage was really struggling. At the time, I was trying to learn to deal with my emotional life. And so the seminary is a pretty safe place. I mean, it was exploring the calling, but it was also a safe place. And as I continued to grow, that particular lifestyle of being alone was no longer appealing to me. And so I eventually transitioned out, but still felt a real strong calling to serve. Mm-hmm. And so I eventually, after leaving the seminary, went into counseling, got my master's in counseling. And basically, that's when I met Holly Kim. We were both on a pretty steep trajectory of inner healing, of wanting the desire to grow, to become healthier, to learn different patterns of communication and how to be family. And so we did that. And I really think that that's what brought us together, was we were both really hungry for growth. I mean, she was coming out of the streets, I was coming out of the seminary, but we had so much in common in terms of what we were looking for. And we got together, eventually got married, and have been partners really in helping others heal. And I'm a real strong believer that part of our purpose is in our pain. Mm-hmm. And what we both experienced was some of the impact of addiction on our lives. In my case, it was, my father's been sober for 40 something years, but at the time he was really struggling. When I was a late teenager, early adult, he made a courageous decision to go to treatment. And back in those days, they would go for 28 days, and then the family members would go for an entire week. They called it Family Week.
Oh, wow.
And,
It was awesome.
yeah, we would go from Monday through Friday from
Like-
8 to 6, the whole family. And that really turned my world upside down, with him going to treatment, me recognizing unhealthy patterns that I had developed. And that was probably one of the most shameful things, one of the most painful things, was dealing with that in my family. But, really went through the healing continuum. And as a result, that's become the treasure chest of how I've served so many people over the years, people that have struggled with emotional pain, with addiction, with a variety of things. And that's what I say, is that when we are able to face our demons, face our pain, walk through it, then all of a sudden it becomes a treasure chest of how we serve others and give to others. And that's certainly been our case. We've been on a mission to help as many people as possible for 30 something years. We developed our own process in our book, A Roadmap to the Soul. That's really our process of how we help people. And we've developed programs from that. But that's really been the cornerstone of our life's work, is we want you to help you become free. We want you to help you learn to deal with your emotional pain. We want you to become who God has called you and meant you to be. And we want you to have life-giving, healthy relationships. And so we first had to learn how to do that for ourselves. And then that's become really what we've been teaching people ever since.
Yeah.
Man, that's so neat. One of the things that, and I love what you said, because without the pain, it's kind of like the law of polarity. There's opposites in everything. Without pain, there's no pleasure. Without, there's not more than, there's two sides to every paper, right? Two sides to every coin, two sides to a pancake. But what is so neat about you guys and where you're at is that you figured out how to get through it. So many times I remember, when I was young and I, attending the church, and there's all these ladies that would be at the front, and they always wear their white hats and stuff. And I would ask them, how you doing, Miss Johnson? And they say, I'm going through.
I love that.
You never get to the other side.
I'm going through.
About that. And I want to kind of talk about, maybe you guys can talk a little bit about identity, because I know, Holly Kim, you were talking about at 22, you were already needing to be sober. So that means you started early. You didn't start like at 21.
Right.
You started early. And so that identity, like who you are, is so shaped in those younger years. And then for you to be able to come out of it, what was that identity thing? I mean, obviously you found God and you found, the healing, but there had to be some mindset changes and some things you thought through. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I have dyslexia and I have ADD, which I did not know until I was like 25 dyslexic and 37 ADD. So, I had been sober, since 22. So I always thought I was just stupid, and that's what they would call me, right? And because I couldn't do it the way other people could do it. So that was the first identity. The first one was I didn't feel wanted because my parents got a divorce and my mother never wanted children, and she would say that, and I think it was her way of explaining why she was not a good mother. She just didn't understand. And so through that, not being wanted, and then also this, believing that I was stupid, and then, that I was never enough is what it boiled down to, is that, and when I was a little girl, I, didn't have very many role models. And I grew up, in the Catholic Church, and I loved Jesus. The stories of Jesus, of him, loved the little children. He loved the sinner. He was friendly. And I just loved Jesus. So my whole life, I would, talk to Jesus. And I was terrified of God. I thought he was going to get me. He was like this big bad wolf, and he was going to get me. And I didn't understand we called it the Holy Ghost. I didn't understand the Holy Ghost, but I loved Jesus, and I just held on to Jesus. And I would just ask Jesus to take me back. And I didn't know that when I was 5, that was suicide, ideations, but it was. But it was that I didn't feel safe where I was. So through the process of, I got married, my husband was a drug dealer, and, that mess that goes with that is, penitentiaries and death. So ended up, looking at 10 years, but we had money, we were white, we made deals, and was a convicted felon. So through that process, death's next, right? So at some point it was like, I never thought I'd live past 25. And at 22, it's like, I'm not going to live very long. Is this what I want? And my stepfather had gone to treatment. So I had gone to family week, like Dean was talking about, and I learned about tolerance. Wasn't a lot of that I was able to absorb because I was still using, but I learned about tolerance. And when I came out of there, I was using and I wasn't even getting high. And I had access to the best and as much as I wanted. So I was like, I just would pray and ask Jesus to help me. And I would shoot dope with Jesus. So, he went everywhere with me, even though, I didn't think I was gonna, like go to heaven or anything. But I did have a personal relationship with him to the best of my ability. And I believe that was mercy. And he had much mercy on me. And so through learning, once I got sober, I detoxed myself. I didn't go to treatment or anything. Our money went to lawyers and stuff. And through that, just realizing that I remember I went to the substance abuse, like the mental health place that was free. And I was talking to this counselor and I talked about leaving my husband. And she said, well, if you leave, you can get worse. And I was like, worse? I mean, at least this dude's got money and he's good looking. I mean, that worse? I can't do worse. I'll never survive worse. And I said, that's the only answer you have for me? And she said, well, unless you do your work. I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, unless you look inside yourself and start to learn to love yourself. And I did not know what that meant on any level, but that's been the journey that I've been on for 42 years. And through the process, what I've trying to, and you see, dyslexic is my gift. So I see in pictures. I didn't understand that for a long time. So I would see the part of me that just was so wounded and just, didn't believe I was enough. And then I saw a part of me that, just didn't care and, would do anything to sedate the pain. And that part of me believed that numbness was happiness. And those two things were not working for me. So then there was this silent little voice in me that wanted more out of life and that wanted what I thought other people might have. I didn't know what they had. I just thought they might have it. And I felt like they had a rule book I didn't have. So through that process of slotting my thoughts, feelings, and beliefs into either the wounded part of me, the protective part of me that, wanted to protect me from being in pain, and then who was I really? And that's what I started to do. And so it was like, if I had a thought, I wanted to know which part of me had that thought. If I had a reaction, which part of me was reacting? If I had a prayer or a wish, which part of me had that? So then I just started to do that. And then when I started to work with others, that's how I would see them in 3 people. I would see them in 3 parts. And so I would dissect them and then I would teach that. And then when Dean came along, I taught him what I did. And that's how we created the concept that we use for the last, 30 something years. I've been doing it for 42 years.
So neat that you were able to see that and be able to figure that out. When I say kindred, we keep going. The dyslexia I have is I see everything in auditory, so it's all about hearing and listening and pulling apart all by that. But that is so cool. Dr. Dean, on your side now, because when we talk about identity, you were kind of I think of a little bit of identity crisis because you were deciding whether I should be a priest because you love God, but at the same time you're going, but I have this other things that I like to do or the things that I want to do. I mean, you're married at this point and, so that all kind of changed. How did your identity begin to shape itself and to become the man that you are today?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think there's two polarities. You were talking about polarities.
Mhm.
One is doing and one is being,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so part of the way I cope with the stresses in my life was to do and to do well
Mhm.
and to
Do better,
overachieve.
yeah.
And so, I did well in school. I did well in athletics. I did well. And I remember one of the most painful days, which is kind of interesting, was in high school. I was at the awards banquet
Mhm.
and I got so many different awards for this sport, for that sport, for the academics, for this and that. And that day was actually very painful for me. And I never understood till later. But what happened was I realized that I was doing all these things and I got all these awards and it still didn't fix it.
Yeah.
It still didn't fix it. And that was really actually a very painful moment for me. And so it really put me on a quest to realize that there's more than just doing. There's more than just achieving. And that's when I really discovered that and started to grow in who I am is really needs to be the foundation of my identity and not what I'm doing. And that led me on a sort of a spiritual quest. I was intrigued by the fact that when Moses asked God on the mountain, "Who are you?" He said, "I am who I am." Or
Right.
I am that I am. There's different translations. But it was based in his identity as I'm just am, and that's what my identity is. And then I would have run into experiences and people that I had encounters with. I remember a particular priest that had a big influence on me. And he really loved me as I am. It wasn't about achieving, it wasn't about accolades. And that was real hard to digest, to experience that level of acceptance when I wasn't really used to it. But it started to, love creates marks that we never forget. And when we experience love in different ways, through different relationships, through different people, it enabled me to start seeing myself the way they were seeing me. And that's actually a prayer that I pray today is, I ask the Lord to help me see myself, not the way I see myself when I look in the mirror, but to see myself as you see me. And so I think the transition from doing to is certainly one that I'm still very much in process of learning that just who I am inherently as a human being that's been born with dignity and honor, not because of anything I achieve, but just like you, just like my wife, just like every individual I deal with, there's an inherent dignity and honor that each person carries because of who they are and not what they do. I think that began to transition in terms of me having a better understanding of myself, and has continued to challenge, because I think that's one of the challenges that we have, and I've noticed over the years is that our ability and our understanding of ourselves colors the way we see other people. In the sense that when Jesus gave the greatest commandment to love the Lord your God with all your heart, to love your neighbor as yourself, I reflected on that a lot, because I realized that all three of those are intimately connected. And anything that helps us grow in one of those relationships has reciprocal impact on the other two.
Yeah.
And anything that destroys one of those relationships has reciprocal impact on the other two. So if I have a very horrible relationship in view of myself, it's going to be really hard to see others in a dignified way, or even have an understanding of God. So our quest has been really to say, okay, we're not going to be real dogmatic or evangelistic about the way we approach people. but we're going to say, what can we do to help you grow on one of those three relationships? If I help you to grow in a deeper love of yourself and acceptance of yourself,
Right.
you're going to treat your wife better. You're going to treat your children better, and you're going to have a better understanding of God. And so we focus on which one are you wanting to work on, and how can we be an advocate for that to grow in a positive way. And then that really has impact on how we see ourselves and our identity. Because I agree with, I think the question that you're asking has to do with the importance of identity and the importance of how I see myself and how that's going to have an impact on everything that I do.
Hey man, I love it. I love it. I love to ask them that question. You know, as in the way you answered, I literally just finished a book writing last month called Be Do Have. And it's that process of becoming and not just doing. And so you're just speaking to, I might have to go chase some chapters based on, you know, what you just shared, because it's so powerful. And when I really kind of think about it now, because I see where you guys are at now, which I think is so healing and so neat to see, is what does your identity look like together? And how is that strengthened? Because it seems like you do the things together that a lot of folks would love to do together. You are in this relationship together. You have, it looks like God in the center of your relationship, but you've been able to form this incredible relationship and do some of the similar things together as you move through life. And I'm sure that pours out like crazy when you're talking to your clients and you're talking to the folks that you're helping. But maybe kind of talk about, and you guys might have to go back and forth on this a little bit, but this identity that you guys created together, how does that shaped, and how have you been able to maintain it for so long?
Well, I think the first thing is that we both love Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit more than we love each other. And, you know, that's been for both of us, you know, and, you know, you'll get checked, you know, when you're a little off, right? And one of the things that I had to do was, you know, when I would get hurt through the process of being in a relationship, because we all get hurt, was I had to ask myself, you know, did I marry somebody that would really intentionally hurt me? Did he do that on purpose? And the answer was no. So if the answer is no, then that means he did something. He didn't mean to hurt me, but I got hurt. So I need to have a voice about that. And my whole thing is, you know, having a voice. So it's, you know, having a voice about what happened. And through that process, being able to hear him, whatever he would say, because I know he didn't do it on purpose. And I would start with that. I know you didn't do this on purpose. So then I had his ear, because he knew that I wasn't like attacking him, but that something that he did hurt me. So that way I could settle myself, right? That angry self I have, that part of me that's been wounded, that it, you know, triggered all of those other things, that I could stay still and be my true self and really hear what Dean had to say. And, you know, he's my best friend. And when he becomes my best friend, I always tell people, marry your best friend. You know, when he becomes my best friend, you know, my best friend and I can, you know, say anything to each other, like, oh, don't wear that. And I'm like, thank you. You know, it's like, help a girl, you know, help a girl. So it's like, you know, he was my best friend. So why would he do anything if he's my friend to hurt me? Right. Even though it happened. So through that process is wanting to really share my life and share my inner world and share my God and share my dreams with him, and wanting him to do that with me. And then, you know, we didn't grow up with multi-millions that we came in together with all of this. So it was not like, okay, these are your dreams, these are my dreams, and we're going to just do them, right? We had to negotiate whose was going first and how we were going to, you know, manage that if it had a financial, you know, thing that went with it. And just really negotiating on wanting the other one to receive everything that God had for them. And my prayer is about Dean is that I ask God to give me all the love that he has for Dean to me, so I can show him what that looks like on earth.
Wow. That's so cool. You have anything to add to that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
That was
just
good.
thankful of that prayer there.
Yeah, I know. Oh my
No,
gosh.
it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. Well, I think that the married couple is one of the most
Mhm.
powerful institutions.
It is.
It You don't have to be married. I'm not against the single life, but I'm just saying I really believe there's something meant to be there to create a powerhouse, in the sense that there's nothing more destructive than a couple that have tremendous animosity with each
Mhm.
other.
Mhm. Yeah.
But there's also the opposite.
Mhm.
There's nothing more powerful than to
Mhm.
have a couple that's walking in unity with each other. And given the fact that we're so very different, in so many ways,
We're so different.
we're so different. But I think that what enabled us to have levels of unity is that we were both committed to our own growth process,
That's
and
so
had
good.
been committed to that for a number of years before we met each other.
Mhm.
If we would have met each other about 4 years earlier, we would have been an absolute mess.
Yes.
But we had been doing a lot to work, which
Right.
prepared us to
Mhm.
come together in unity. I think one of the things that we stumbled upon also to create unity is, on our honeymoon, we actually spent time visualizing what did we want to accomplish together
Mhm.
as a couple. We created a B point. Nobody told us to do that. I don't know. We just ended up doing
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And it actually provided a common vision of where we were walking. So I wasn't walking to Texas and she wasn't walking to Florida.
Right.
We were walking together in the same direction. And so I think that's another important thing that we stumbled upon that worked. And there was a certain point when one of our anniversaries, we had to do another vision because
Mhm.
we had accomplished all the things we
Yeah.
did in the original. But and then also I think that there is a theological basis for true unity can only be achieved in connection with the Spirit. In the Christian or the Judeo-Christian tradition, Adam and Eve walked in harmony with
Mhm.
God, and after the rupture of the original sin was the
Mhm.
first marital fight.
Mhm.
And so the first marital fight was a result of disconnection spiritually. And I think that true unity comes when there is not only connection with each other,
Mhm.
but there's connection spiritually and there's harmony there. And
Mhm.
then that's when you can have true unity. And there's even a basis of, that the two shall become one. And so there's a certain oneness that begins to happen. And I really like when you get into spiritual laws and that, there's sayings like, one can make 100 fly, two can make 10,
10,000.
10,000 or
Yeah.
1,000. There's this exponential increase when you have greater unity. And I think that bespeaks really the unity and the identity of a couple. But our full identity can't be achieved just between her and I. It has to
Mhm.
include our spiritual connection.
Mhm.
And that's when we can really find the destiny that we've had together as a couple, in addition to individuals.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
and,
that.
one of the things is that what saddens me is that a lot of people will say, because Dean and I have always worked together. We've always, we wrote a book together. Anything we do is usually together. Even though I may like go on a retreat and speak, and he may go somewhere else and speak, I talk about him. He talks about me. We're just together, right? And people will say, I haven't seen a healthy marriage like y'all's. And that saddens me. It's like, no, we want a lot of healthy marriages. And we want people to see that this is a fabulous thing that you get to, live your life with another person, experience things, see things, laugh, cry together, and, support one another in your thoughts and dreams. So, I mean, that's one of the things that's important to us. Like in our Transform You program, it's the same price for an individual as it is for a couple. We don't charge more for a couple because we see them as one and we want them to be one. and so it's, for us, it's like, no, we want to build these healthy, loving relationships, and we want people to see them, that we kiss in the grocery store. We still hold hands when we walk. He hugs me, he kisses me, in public, like he loves me everywhere. I love him everywhere, not just, in the corner over here. We want our son to see how much we love each other, and we talk about each other, when it's appropriate. So it's like, it becomes, just like our son's a part of our life. He's, we're part of each other's lives, and we speak about it. We show it. We express our internal love for one another externally.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So cool. So when you think about trust and how important trust is, and being able, I think sometimes, and maybe for both of you, you might not trust yourself a lot when you were younger. Right. And now you have to figure out who you're going to trust and not trust and build those relationships. How have you been able to take trust and make it part of your lives and what you do? Not just trusting each other, but trusting people around you. Maybe interact with trust for me a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would answer that by the opposite of trust is fear, right? Yeah. I'm afraid of you. Whenever we get caught in fear, then we get caught in our survival response. We call it the protector. And my protector might look a lot different than hers, right? She might curse me out. I might go hide in a corner, but we're both protecting ourselves. But once we get into our protective response and we're driven by fear, we become very different. It's like, for example, we've been married 33 years. We share a bank account. We have a child together. We share homes. We have the same, we're both on our cars and our mortgages and all that stuff. And in 3.5 seconds, if I get afraid, she suddenly goes from friend to enemy. In just a moment, like I'm seeing her as an enemy. And that's when I get stuck in my coping or my survival response. What's so important is I need to learn how to navigate that successfully, because at that moment, I'll no longer trust her. I don't trust anybody that looks like her with the same last name, the same name. It's like everything. But if I can't manage that internally, then it gets played out with her.
Yeah.
So we teach couples, we say, once you get stuck in, you get afraid and you get in your survival response and your spouse suddenly becomes an enemy, this person that you love becomes an enemy, you have to learn to manage that and manage the fear. And before you try to address the issue, you need to reestablish connection. Sometimes what happens is that if we have a particular issue and we're both in our survival response and we try to talk about the issue, there's no way you're going to solve it, because when you're in your survival response, you want to win. And you want to show her why I'm right and she's wrong. And it's a whole different agenda. And so if I'm able to manage that and recreate connection, after we create connection, then we can talk about the issue. And one of the biggest mistakes I see couples make, or if we talk about trust, we need to reestablish the trust again before we address the problem. And so, I've learned over the years, there's certain things that can help create connection. Like acts of service for my wife. Like that's all I have to do is pull out a vacuum and start vacuuming the carpet. It's like, oh, he's not my enemy. He cares about me, right? I go wash the dishes. That's all. Go wash the dishes, go wash the car, just do an act of service. And we're starting to create this connection again. And she just has to say something nice to me. Like, I really appreciate how hard you work, honey. Oh, you do? All right. You're not my enemy no more. Okay. What do we do? So anyway, it's a long way of saying that, depending on how we manage ourselves has to do with our ability to trust or be stuck in fear. And when we master learning how to deal with fear, which is going to come up for all of us, then we can master staying in a place of trust.
Right. Yeah, I would totally. Isn't that good? Yeah. And, you know, for me, I had to learn to trust myself first.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm not going to have an affair on my husband because I don't want to have an affair on myself. I'm not willing to cheat on myself.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to, you know, steal for myself. I'm not willing to, you know, betray God, you know. So it's like, first I had to trust myself in all those areas. And then I knew what I could give. So if I know what I can give, then you know, and then I want to know what you can give. You know, like I can give honesty, I can give, you know, connection, I can give being in the present. You know, I can give you that I'm going to work on, you know, managing my inner world. And then I'm going to work on being able to communicate that in a clear, specific way where you can hear all of me. And so everything's going to be clear. So it's like I had to learn to trust that. Then I can bring trust to the table. So then I could trust you. And if I couldn't trust you, then what is it about me that's not trusting you? Then I can speak about that. Right. So it's like, you know, a lot of people, they go in fast and furious. And then later they're like, oh my God, what have I done? And I don't trust this person. Well, it's like you build that, you know, like my character, my identity, I showed who I was, and I was, you know, over time. And so you could trust what I said was what I did. And when I didn't do something that I said, I can own it. I can say why I didn't do it, what was wrong. I can ask for your forgiveness. So in that, it's like me understanding me enough to be able to bring that to the table.
And it sounds like what you had to do to trust yourself was keep promises that you made to yourself.
Yes.
Then you can trust that you become that person.
Yes.
Dr. Dean, I love what you said about connecting back before you try to start going down that path. And you as you guys were talking about the love, or you were talking about the love language, I'm thinking like I have 8 kids and they all have different combinations of love languages. And I keep forgetting which one is this and which kid it is. And then, you know, I'll go vacuum the carpet for one. I'm like, what are you doing? I need you to give me something, you know, whatever the gifts are, or whatever that is. Oh my gosh. And what's so cool is I can tell what you guys do. I can tell the love that you have for people and the connection you make with people. And, you know, I would love for you guys to kind of share what it is you do and how you help people and, you know, what the do part. I mean, I've been real selfish in asking you who you are part, but I would love to hear what you do. And I know you've been sharing what you do, but I want to make it very evident and clear what you're doing with me is what you do with others. And this is just so fantastic that we're doing it. So maybe share a little bit about your practice and how it works and why people want to be involved.
Yeah, well, all of our work can be found at ihaveavoice.com, which is our website. And we have our primary program. Well, we have our book, A Roadmap to the Soul, which is really our process written out. It's really a workbook more than a book in terms of bringing you through a process. But we also have our intensive online coaching program, which after this we're getting on the call. But it's called Transform You, and it's a 4-month intensive program for individuals or couples. And it brings them through a transformational journey to do all the things we're talking about and have a greater love for themselves, to remove the blocks that keep them from being who they're meant to be before God, helping them connect spiritually, helping them heal old places and contain self-destructive behavior. And so that's our program. And you know, we do other things, but that's really the main two is the book and Transform You. Huh?
Yeah. And one of the things about Transform You and A Roadmap to the Soul, our book, is that our goal is to help it become a lifestyle, because obviously it works, right? That, you know, we're still in love. We're more in love today than we've ever been. We have a healthy, loving relationship with our son and his new wife. And we have friends. Like I have friends of 40 years, you know, I just went to the beach with them. So it's like in that is learning to have this as a lifestyle. So that's why it's 4 months where we really integrated in, and you learn the language and you learn who you are. And what you really learn is how wonderful you really are in the end, and that no one can break you. And then what we've done is on our YouTube channel, we have over 200-300 free videos, and they go from 30 seconds to an hour. And we teach on everything. Like we teach on marijuana, we teach on spirituality, we teach on everything, marriage, parenting, we have anxiety, anything. So we just have that available so people can get value, people can learn. And then we also have our own podcast, which is different, is that what we do is we do live coaching on the podcast. So someone comes up and they say, I have an issue with finances. So then we coach them on that, and we, do that for about 35 to 45 minutes. And then other people can see what it's like to be coached. And somebody will come in and, I'm divorced and I never want to get in a relationship again, but I know that's not healthy. So we'll deal with that. So, people bring all kind of different things to us. And so we have that as well.
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's so cool. Maybe you could kind of talk about your book a little bit. Here's how I imagine it, because you two are writing this book together, and you both have your own kind of individual thoughts of what you want in the book. And I can imagine one saying, well, I think this real transformative thing is really cool. And the other person go, well, no, I don't think you should write it like this. And the other person go, well, I want to write it like this. Like, no, this is the way that we're going to say it. I think colleague Kim is the one saying, no, this is what you're going to do.
Well, it's interesting. Being dyslexic, her gift is she sees things visually, right? And so when we first started, I was getting my master's in counseling, and she was having so much success in her counseling work. And I was saying she wasn't,
and that was his third degree. Okay.
She wasn't.
Let's just go there. No, that was his fourth degree. He had 2 undergraduates and a master's in theology, and now he's going for a master's in counseling. Okay, so let's just go there, right?
I was amazed at how she was successful. She was. So I started interviewing her about how do you work with people, and she says, I see 3 different parts of them, like 3 different personalities.
Yeah.
Their pain, their coping behaviors, and their true self. And so I just started putting a language to what she was seeing. Gotcha. And that's really what became the book. And so, she relied on me for the verbiage, but I relied on her, the intuitive vision of what was really working. And so it was actually pretty easy to write, because it wasn't.
Okay. It was really easy to write. And this, and the thing was, the rules that I had was I didn't want any words past a 5th grade level.
Okay.
And I didn't want it lengthy. I wanted it to the point. I wanted to be very practical. And I wanted people that could not afford to come and see us individually, that there would be something that they could buy and do it without us. And so, I wanted to be able to reach all people, so for $20 you could do the book, right? And then, now we have the program, which I've always wanted to do, and I couldn't do it without him. So, and I wouldn't do it without him. So now we have the process, especially with online now. Like I wanted therapy in a book. So it's like coaching, coaching online. And so, but they do it at their home, right? They get the videos, the download, the school, and they do it at their house. So that was what I really wanted, because a lot of people would have this hang up about going, and they were something was wrong with them. They had this diagnosis. Yeah. And I didn't want, I wanted to get out of that. I wanted to move into loving yourself is something everybody needs to learn to do constantly, because, we're just an onion that we're unpeeling. And the more we unpeel, the more love we find. So, and it's like in the word, it's glory to glory. It's glory to glory. So it's like you learn and you love and you love and you learn. And, things that, for me, it's like things that let's just say there's a death in the family. Okay. Everybody loves that person. Well, that part of that death that happened, there needs 100% of love. Okay. So it's like you need 100% of love, but everybody in the family needs 100% of love. So, but we're all hurting. So maybe we all get to love each other 10%. So there's 90% still in there that needs love. So it's like when I get triggered, it's that thing that needed love. So I might have 50 of those in me that, from 10% to 90% still need love. And where we all get mixed up is that it was like, don't trigger me because I don't want to feel that. Well, it's just stuff that needs love. So when I get that, then I cannot be afraid of this. And so I wanted them to see that it wasn't like they're, got all these problems. It's just, how do you love that? Wow. And so it's just, I wanted it to be something that we could encourage people, that it's like a school. It's just, you didn't learn how to do it. It's nobody's fault. We're going to learn how to do it. And we're going to, be able to love ourselves and others better and God. So it's a win-win-win.
Wow. That is so cool. And what I picked up what's really cool is, as you were writing the book, you were thinking about, how do I reach people that have been labeled in some way? How do I reach people that might have a disability? My first book was called There's No Tiger. And I literally wrote it with the words, I don't know if you can see it, with the bigger text, with the bigger gap in it. So I use a font that was for dyslexia. That is actually one that everybody has to read to be able to do it. Because we think that way, right? We think, if it were me that was trying to read it and I struggled through all this other stuff, why can't I just make it easier for the person who's getting it to get the material, instead of just worried about the actual, word? How do I read the words and make sure the words stick? Which is just so neat and so great. Before I ask you, to tell me what you did, I have one question that I just kind of, for a couple like you, that seems like, wait, we got it together. And I know there's not every second of every day that it's all perfect. That's not logical. What do you guys like to go do together that just is so fun, that you get to do together as you go out and you work hard and you do stuff together, but now we're going to go out on our time of just with us. What is it that you guys go do that you just love?
Well, we live in New Orleans, so we live in a place that we celebrate things every day. Yeah. We just had Jazz Fest for the last 2 weekends. We didn't go to the fest, but what we did was we went down to the quarter. We went walk around. We went eat at a nice restaurant. We get dressed up, get fun and cute, and, go hang out in the city, go eat somewhere, go, walk around. We see all the beautiful people, invite them to the city, because we'll go, it looks like we're tourists, right? And we'll go to the art galleries or whatever. And they're like, where are you from? We're like, we're from here. And they're like, oh, you're from here. So, we just go we love our city. We pray for our city. Our city is our ministry. So, New Orleans is our ministry. And so we go and love our beloved city. And we just celebrate our city in different ways. And we love the Pels. We love basketball, huh, honey? Yeah. We'll go to the game. We love going to the games. What else do we do? And then we watch series. And right now we have a good friend that is from Juarez, Mexico. We're part of Transform Our World. And he is from there, and he has made a big dent in the cartel by praying for the Sicarios and the cartel. And so he has some stuff going on that he may be able to facilitate with some of the ex-drug lords. So we are watching Narcos right now and learning everything.
Yes, that's one of our favorite things.
Yeah, we're learning everything about it, so we can
fresh popcorn, and we watch our series together.
And so we're learning all about this so we can communicate with our friend Pancho, and pray for him, and see what's going to happen, because there's been some miracles.
Oh yeah.
You guys have a favorite series that you go back to all the time?
No, we just watch new ones.
Yeah,
but recommendation for all couples: lots of sex.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Because it creates connection.
Yes.
It creates bonding. It creates.
Yes.
There's so much exchanged in that beautiful act. It's one of the greatest gifts God gives us as a married couple.
Yes.
And I really believe it's the closest thing to heaven on this side of heaven.
Yeah.
And so it's a great expression of love. So
yes,
certainly recommend that.
Yes, we do. We recommend that to our clients. We're 7 and 7, 30 and 30, So
explain 7 and 7, 30 and 30.
Have sex every day for 7 days. Have sex every day for 30 days.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean performance. It means intention.
Okay.
So we definitely recommend that. And we don't recommend anything we don't do. So.
All right. Well, there you go.
There you go.
So what did I not talk about that you guys want to make sure you talk about? Because I'm so selfish in my questions and wanting to learn the things that I get to learn. But there are things, I mean, you came on this show because you wanted to share with everybody something. What are those things?
I love your title of your show, Living Boldly with Purpose. And, a lot of people get petrified and get stuck in concrete due to fear. And to live boldly, you must put the fear in the back, And, for me, it's about, I'm the girl that talks in the elevator, where I was a kid that couldn't hold her head up because I had so much shame and so much fear. And doing my work, what I've learned is that everybody's afraid. And we're all the same. And being a therapist for over 40 years, I can promise you, we're all the same. And we're all afraid, no matter where we come from. And we all have the same issues. I work with a lot of people that are African Americans, and, they'll say in my culture, and I'm like, baby, that's in my culture too. You just never talk to nobody. We got the same problems. Okay. We got the same stuff. So I've had the privilege of learning that. And that has given me much boldness to walk in wherever I am and look people in the eye with much love and no fear and say hello. And that living boldly, because you never know who needs that. We all need that. We all need somebody to see us. So, for me, it's about seeing and telling people they're worth it, whatever it takes.
That's neat. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Dean, any closing things or things you want to make sure that everybody hears?
I don't have anything to really add to that. I really love your interview.
Yeah.
I love your spirit.
Yeah.
And even just a little bit I've heard about you, your family, adopting kids, having the heart for really making the world a better place. So certainly commend you on that.
Gotcha. Thank you. What's your website one more time, so that I just want to make sure we get it written down. We put it in the show notes. We put it everywhere where people could get to it.
Yeah, it's ihaveavoice.com.
ihaveavoice.com.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
I have a voice. And your book?
Here it is.
A roadmap
to the soul.
A roadmap. I wrote it down.
There it is. Look, there it is.
Oh gosh. Oh, what a beautiful book. I love it, love it, love it. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you guys for sharing your hearts today. Thank you for being on this show. When I started the show and I told you at the beginning, this was going to be one of those that you're going to want to go back, you're going to want to watch, you're going to want to make sure that you dig in deep. I would encourage you to go to their website. I would encourage you to order their book and get their book and make it part of your life. And if you're wanting to grow, they have a whole intensive coaching program that can help you become the person. And that's why I wrote a book called Be Do Have, because I think becoming is what God put us on this earth to do. He didn't put us on this earth just to do. And he wants us to have. I'm not saying he doesn't want you to have, but you got to become the person who can do the thing that then you can have. And we get it so backwards so many times in our lives. And so, to see a couple that makes it work, to see that there are examples, because sometimes we say, oh, I don't see any examples. It wasn't that way in my family. It wasn't way. Well, you get an opportunity to change generations and generations. And the thing that a lot of us don't do is ask for help. We think we can figure it out on our own. And what I'm saying is we can't figure it out on our own. God put us on this earth to be in relationship. And this is a great relationship to have. So again, you guys, it's been like totally just, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go watch the show again, because it was I got so much out of it. I got like 4 pages of notes over here. And you guys didn't even know that you were telling me stuff that was like changing my life. And so the connection part is just, it's just going through my head, is connecting back before you try to have somebody trust you again, which is just so incredible. And so again, thank you again. We can't wait to maybe we can have you back in a year or two, or we can get maybe one of your clients on, or somebody that would be on to kind of just talk about all the wonderful things that you guys are doing. Hey, I want you guys, don't forget, I'm Dr. B. I'm trying to help you become the person. Don't forget your God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. You guys have an amazing, awesome, incredible day today.